There are all sorts of different tiny whoops. Some tiny whoops are good for indoors. Some tiny whoops are good for outdoors. Some tiny whoops are good for racing. And some tiny whoops are good for filming. I hate tiny whoops. I absolutely hate them. I think they're the worst part of our hobby. I've had terrible experiences with them. Flying with them is terrible. Building them is terrible. Basically everything about them is terrible. So if you haven't started, maybe you should just leave right now. If you're ready to go through a tumultuous journey through the world of tiny whoops, I'm going to teach you everything I learned. Everything. Grab some popcorn, grab a notepad. Let's do this. I don't even want to do this, but I'm doing it so that you don't have to go through all the pain that I've gone through and the suffering. So that's what tiny whoops are. The pain and suffering. Just like this hobby, you know? You people are sick. It takes sick people to enjoy doing these things. That's why we're all here together. Buckle up and let me take you on a tiny whoop masterclass. The following video is not sponsored by anyone except for me. I have a website where I build beautiful drones, actually drones that are enjoyable to fly. Go check out my website. It's at the homepage. Click that. Check that out. To send me stuff and you're a company and you want to, like, you know, get my views on your things, feel free to do that too. Reach out to me, but I'll be honest. I'm always honest. I think that's why people don't like me. I just say how I feel. Okay, let's do this. Let's go. My journey starts over here with the AE65 Anniversary Edition. It came in a beautiful, I like the way this feels. This package is the nicest feeling package of all the packages that I got, like drone packages. It has like this like nice feeling. The package feels nice. Boxes that have foam in them and you can cut the foam and put them inside these cases. And then it's like a case just for your drone. You might have to cut it a bit. This one also came with a charger, which is very nice. It still works. On the first day of flying it, an ESC died. So this is what happens with tiny whoops. Do you want to spend $165 Canadian just to have something that flies like crap and breaks? Because they have these tiny little motors, and these are actually nicer ones. Where's the ones that came with? Okay, so it came with these tiny little stupid motors, and these tiny motors have a long shaft, and the long shaft gets bent on them easily. As if that's not bad enough, they're not one piece. Focus. Look, you can see there's like there's a separation.
A gap where there is a great void.
See the separation right above Ishin? There's a separation, so you can smack them and they start falling apart.
But I'm asking you to fill that void.
So these little stupid motors that are flimsy and they break and they bend and they stop working on you. They get hairs stuck in them and it's just a terrible, terrible thing. Some people are obsessed with 65 and 65 millimeters is what lots of tiny whoop racers use. But I'm gonna just tell you right now, I hate 65 millimeters. So if you're one of those like hardcore tiny whoop enthusiasts were like 65 is the true tiny whoop. 75 is better in every way. You get longer flight times, better stability. It's just better. 75 is better. So 65, we're not even really talking about 65. So if you love 65s and I just ruined everything for you, I'm going to tell you why. We're going to talk about everything. The Mobeetle though, the Mobeetle was pretty good. And it came with a little frame and you could turn it into okay, wait. After I got to AE65 and I had a terrible experience, I was traumatized. I was so traumatized that I didn't touch any tiny whoops for like 2 years. I was just like, no, I am not gonna do this anymore. I don't need you anymore. $165 for 1 day of hating myself. No thank you. And like, look at this, like just cheap little dinky plastic. No, you don't wanna spend your money and get garbage. No, 2 years went by. All of a sudden, the Mobula 7 1S came out, and the Meteor 65 Pro. Everyone was reviewing them, talking about how great they are, how fun they are, and I'm just like, oh, I saw Infinity Loop's video with his Mobula 7 smashing into the wall over and over and over again. It was a beautiful video.
Oh, sorry,
And I was just like, okay, maybe I'm gonna give this a chance. You know what, I don't wanna have the experience I had last time. So I'm gonna just buy everything. So I bought a Mobeetle, a Mobula 6, Meteor 65 Pro, a Meteor 75 Pro, a Meteor 75 HD0, a Mobula 7 HD0, and I got it all. I got all the stuff that was popular at the time, and I said I'm gonna test them all. I'm gonna find out what's going on, because there's all these different motors, there's all these different propellers, just like anything in FPV. How do you know what's good? How are you supposed to know? You can listen to the reviews, but it's just like, can you really trust these reviewers?
Like that time that I listened to Joshua Bartwell.
Newbie Drone has gone the extra mile here to include
Everything, all the cheapest crap possible, so that you have everything that can let you down piece by piece. It could blow up your house. This was the point where I stopped trusting JB. I use this as my kit for all the other stuff I use. Nothing from that kit was good. He's helped us a lot. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be able to FPV. Neither would lots of us. But that doesn't give you the excuse to recommend crap products to people, especially beginners. You lied.
I think you could build an entire quadcopter with just the things in this kit.
Or set your house on fire.
Of course, these bits are actually pretty good.
PB.
They're not that good. Buy
Said.
WeHot. Look inside my Amazon affiliate link in the homepage. This is a WeHot.
Blue FPV.
It costs $10,
Said.
but it's best. I want to see that thing. Show me the thing that almost blew up my house. See how it doesn't have any like
Thordian
rubbery
FPV.
grommet
Said.
protector thing?
Morning Matt, how ya
This-
doing?
Will blow up. It will blow up.
XT60 Power One, little sponge.
Don't use the sponge. The sponge is crap. This is what you want. You want to use one of these guys. If you're new, use that. Don't use the sponge. The sponge is dumb. Water will oxidize your tip and then it'll be gone. Blue FPV said you should use the Ethics one. I haven't used it.
Mike,
that's an option.
Matt, you put out that message the other day about ordering frames.
I'm going to put together a
How
kit.
often do you make an order?
I'm going to put together a kit.
I'm looking at commissioning you to build a drone for me soon. Ish.
Okay.
Money's tight right now.
Sorry, you're distracting me. Just one sec. I'll put together a kit eventually.
Thordian.
So subscribe.
Natural.
Check out the website. It'll keep getting better.
Some of them are entertaining, but it was like, yeah, I got them all. The Mobeetle, it was fine, but it was the frame. This frame is flimsy. Analog versus digital versus HD0. We have HD0 over here. We have some analog. This is analog. Now the big thing with HD versus analog, straight up, the weight. The digital, it's too heavy, and you feel it. This, if you were gonna buy HD0 and just get something fun that you can fly around and bash the crap out of, the Meteor 75 is great. It's heavy, but it takes a beating. This canopy is strong, and this frame is my favorite 75mm frame. So if you get this 75mm frame and that Mobula 75 HD0, it's a tank. You will feel the weight on the HD systems until you get up to a Meteor 75 Pro. This HD0 Meteor 75 Pro is the smallest size where you don't really feel the weight. So here, this is one of the ones that I've flown the most and took the most beatings. It's my 75 HD0, but you still feel the weight. And I'm using lighter motors on this than what it came with, and I changed the canopy. This is the exact same drone as this. And we're going from 35 grams to about 30 grams. So that's a big difference. So the motors. So you're looking at three types of motors. The 702s, the 802s, and then the 1102s. Once again, these little guys, I just don't like them. I don't like the tiny motors. Unless you go super, super light. So if you do a super light, and that's how you're looking at it, you're either going to be making a beefier, stronger, more powerful build, or you're going to be doing a super light, nimble build. If you do a super light, nimble build, the 702s are the way to go. Now, lots of people like 802s and they think that they're smoother, but I just think that if you're going to go light, go as light as possible, and you can do something kind of like this. This is my favorite indoor racer. Here in our group of racers, we're not limited to 65mm. You can do 75s, you can do 75 Pros, and whatever you want. If you take the Mobeetle, it has the KV of 2300, and I think that's a really nice KV because I'm not a good racer. So if you're an amazing racer, get the highest KV and blast the thing out of your drone. But if you can't even take 1900s to their limit, if you're not flying at full throttle the whole time and feeling like you're going too slow, then you don't need higher kV motors. So don't get caught up in that, oh, I need the highest kV motors. No, they're not going to make you better. Having smaller motors with this less kV and then learning to just fly slow and smooth and work your way to getting faster, having control the whole time, that's going to make you a better pilot. Having this thing that's super powerful means you're not going to have as much control. This is my favorite little racer. It's a Mo-Beetle, is transferred over to a Mobula frame, the Mobula V2. There's a black one and there's a clear one, and the clear one is actually lighter than the black one, but it's also a little bit fragile. So you can see I cracked the little thing there, but it still works. Talk about antennas. So most whoops have these whip antennas. If you're on analog, you might want to get one of the little right-handed antennas or left-handed antennas. I've always just stuck to the whips because the whips are light, but the whip antennas are not going to give you as clear of a picture as if you're using the right-hand polarized or left-hand polarized ones. They'll give you a clear picture. When it comes to digital though, you don't even bother with that because you're going to be able to get a good enough picture coming out of the whip. It's not really going to make that much of a difference. Lots of the time when it comes to whoops, you want to be light. You want to make it as light as possible so you're not slowed down. Whoops, it's like they bobble. They bobble. They're harder to control. And that's one of the things that I hate about the 65. So what you have to understand is when you look at the 65 and then you look at the 75. So because there's so little propeller space, these little things have to like go, and they're going faster. They're holding this weight, and the weight is kind of like a pebble. Like it's like this small, round, heavy area, and these little propellers have to try and control it. So it's hard to control the throttle. It's like, okay, it's not lifting it, it's not lifting it. Woo, it's lifting it. And oh, it's dropping, and you're trying to catch it, and it's shaking, and it's a nightmare, and you're like, it's just not a good experience. And then you have something a little bit bigger, it's a little bit smoother. You get longer flight times. You get more control. And people say it's faster. It can be. It can be a little bit faster, but it all depends. I find a 75 to be much smoother, much more flight time, and a much better experience than a 65. I personally just hate 65s. Why would you want to fly for a minute less? Why would you want this little thing that's like shaking like crazy? And once again though, these are my opinions, right? I don't fly indoor a ton. Let's talk about batteries. We got 1S and 2S. When it comes to 1S batteries, every single brand and like MAW is going to be different. It's not as simple as just saying buy G&B batteries or buy tattoos or buy 300s or buy 450s or buy these. It's not as simple as that. Every single like make is different. You're going to be looking mostly at 1S or 2S batteries. If you're flying indoors, a few years ago, there was these 2S drones, and that was the only way to kind of get more power. In the past year or so, we have the introduction of larger 1S motors. Ever since the 1102 motors and the 1002s, these personally are my favorite, the Happy Model 1002 motors. They're lighter than the Beta FPV 1102s. I like them. So before, what would happen is we'd be using these kind of motors with a 2S battery. This was a Meteor 85 that I flashed with the newest beta flight, and then when I went to take off, it blew up. It was working fine, flashed it with the new firmware, boom, it just literally just blew up on me. So this was one of my favorite drones for a little bit, and that's what it used to look like, the 2S. And it was really fun, but like it only flew for 2 minutes. Ever since the introduction of the 1002s and the 1102 motors, 1S has become way better. Like it's just like you don't need 2S. You really don't need 2S for indoor flying. 1S is more than enough. You're going to be looking at, for the best batteries, when you're racing, you're going to want 300s. These batteries are terrible. But Beta FPV came out with new batteries, the Lavas. One of the most popular batteries is 300 Tattoo. And if you get these Lava, they're actually better than them, I think. I'm gonna take all this information and put just the best things on my website so that there'll be links for you to find all the best stuff for you. So if you're racing, you're gonna wanna be using 300s. Racing is about just getting your laps in as quick as possible, so you want it to be as light as possible, enough battery power to get through the race. If you have a lot left over, that means go for a smaller battery. all you're trying to do is put in your laps. You're trying to get them done as fast as possible. If you get them done, your battery's dead at the end, that's totally fine. When you're flying whoops more for like enjoyment, you kind of want to have a little bit more flight time. You don't want to be changing your pack every 2 minutes. It's kind of annoying. So it's two totally different mindsets. And you have to think about these different mindsets when you're looking at this stuff. Because do you want something that's going to be the most fun to kind of flip around and have fun with? Or do you want something that's just going to be really zippy? My choice battery for 300s are the Lava Beta FPV. And then when you look at these two, my favorite battery, like for outdoor flying and everything, is the G&B 530s, the yellow ones. They're lighter, they pack more of a punch, and I have the best performance out of these. There's the older ones, and these have the PH connector. Like all these like dinky things, they're not great. When you're getting all this stuff and buying these things, don't go cheap on the batteries. Buy good batteries. The batteries make a big difference. Having a good drone makes a big difference, and having good batteries make a difference. Why get a good drone and fly crap batteries where your experience is going to be terrible? You know, voltage sag, accidents, loss of drones, stuff like that. No, we want to have the stability, the power, just a good experience. Batteries are going to degrade anyways, so why don't you get good ones that will degrade a bit slower, last you longer, and be more enjoyable, instead of having a whole bag of crap batteries that you're never going to use. And these 380s from G&B, these are trash. They're absolute garbage. I don't know why they're so bad, but they just puff. They're not designed well. The tops break off. They're terrible. They win my worst battery ever award. There's the R-lines, these 300s, they're heavy though. They're solid, but they're too heavy.
Your chair called me.
Like, help me. It's so heavy.
Then you can mess around with like these no-name things, these cheaper ones. Don't do it. Just don't waste your time. This is all a waste of time, a waste of money. You have to be very careful with these chargers, because these chargers, they put out 1 amp each. And when you're charging these 300 batteries, you want to be charging them at 0.3 to like 0.5 amps. You don't want to be charging them at 1 amp, because you're going to degrade the battery and it's easier for you to have problems. And we don't want to have problems. When you buy the Meteor drones for Beta FPV, they give you one of these, and that's nice. It's nice to be able to just have something to actually like check your voltage with. And that's what I like the most about it. See, it says test. You can check your voltage with it. Yay, that's what that's good for. When you buy a Mobula 7 1S, you get this thing. Right? You have to fiddle with it and stuff. And if you want to charge 4 batteries, you put the 4 here. And if you charge 1, you put it here. It's finicky and stuff too, but it's at least something. Just forget all of that. When it comes to 1S batteries and just whoops and everything, everybody needs one of these. They didn't give it to me. I actually had to pay for it. You guys actually bought this for me. This was the first purchase I made from you guys with affiliate sales. You can charge with a USB-C. You can charge with a bigger LiPo. You can charge with DC power. It's just great. A review for that, and then you can learn how that works. Let's talk about A30 connectors. They're okay, but personally, you're always having to like shove the battery in. Like if you have a BT2, you can shove it in there. There's like a little nub that you have to kind of like bypass to shove it in. And when you shove it in, you get used to doing that. You can shove it in this way or that way. And I actually did that today, and it knocked the wire right off of my drone. Thank goodness it didn't destroy the drone. That's what I don't like about the A30s. You have to shove in these guys for them to go, unless you have A30 tops. See, if you have these guys, then they work with that connector. Still, even though you can stick these in, and that kind of makes it appealing, with the A30s, you're always kind of shoving something in. With the BT2s, you can't do it the wrong way, so that protects you from that problem. So BT2 for the win. My favorite like indoor racing frame is this, the Mobula 7 V2. It's the lightest of these like type of frames. It is a little brittle if you build heavy, so you can't build heavy. You can take a Maw Beetle and you can transfer the Maw Beetle onto this. I think that's the way to go. The only thing, you can't stick them in through here. So you have to put the motors on and then solder these kind of like weird by hand. I just took a little piece of foam so that I can stick 300 batteries. It weighs 18.44 grams. So this thing is less than 20 grams, 75, and it flies beautifully. My favorite motors are the Happy Model 1002s. When it comes to the frames, all I'm looking at is that one for racing. For freestyle is the Meteor Pro 75 and outdoors. It's my favorite Whoop frame. This one was ran over by a bus, literally by a TTC bus. And you see how it's like all a little bit bent and stuff. It didn't crack anywhere. The Meteor Pro 75, specifically the black. I loved this color, but this one from some bashing took a little crack right in there, and I fixed it with E6000, but still it cracked. What I noticed with these frames is the colored ones, nice as they look, they crack easier than the black ones. So these black ones are like indestructible. So order yourself some Meteor Pro 75s in black. Indestructible. They don't break. They're solid. The same thing with the Meteor 75. This frame, you look for that shape, same thing, the black ones. The black ones are just tough because I've smashed the crap out of this drone, which is that same frame. It's taken a beating. You can see it's all rough and everything, but no cracks anywhere. And this is heavier. So if you had analog in there, it would be no problem at all. If you do crack your frames, you can save them and do stuff like this if you wanted to make like little protection or whatever. Let's go through all the frames. I really don't like these. They're flimsy. And then when the drone has a frame that's like flimsy, it's just the PIDs and stuff are not happy with Whoops. They shake a lot. And then the electronics are not happy. They start doing weird things, and then you're not happy either. And we all want to be happy. This was solid for its time, but I don't really like the 85 that much. Then when it comes to these Happy models, these 85s also, these are trash. You just look at them the wrong way and they will crack. Right like there. That's where they'll crack. And we don't want that. Happy model makes good electronics and terrible frames. And Beta FPV makes amazing frames with terrible electronics. Like that's what's going down. That's what's happening. This is an overlooked one. The HG-LRC Petrel V2. This is a contender for the Mobula 7-1S. If I told you to buy a Whoop, the Whoop I'd recommend the most usually is the Meteor Pro 75. Just out of the box for 109 American dollars, you can't beat it. It comes with 2 batteries, the charger, it's a solid drone, and as long as you don't try taking the plugs out, it'll be fine. The moment you take the plugs out and try to direct solder it, you have a huge chance of killing it, but we'll get to that later. I hope you're having a great time. I think it's time to smash the like button. If you're not subscribed, then you should subscribe too. Time to say thank you to the Patreons. These people are wonderful. And you could be wonderful too. For as little as $1, you can join my Patreon. Thank you to the people that give me company in my live streams as I make all these things and just live life. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your company. And yeah, I want to give a huge shout out to the Patreons that I shout out to. If I can get enough Patreons, eventually be like Joshua Bardwell, be more like testing stuff, and I'm not going to be Joshua Bardwell. I can't teach people that much. If you guys got me to the point where this can be my full-time job, I'd love you forever. Promise to keep getting better. You know, imagine if I could have camera person here filming all this stuff. I'm a good editor. By the time I can hire an editor, I probably won't even want to. But like, you know, you give me money and then I can actually like do like cool, awesome things like real YouTubers, like build a real FPV drone that I can go into and fly an acro. You see all these people going into their FPV drones and then hovering it. Like, I actually want to go inside an FPV drone and do acro with myself. Over a lake or something, I don't know, being securely tied in because I do want to keep my body parts. Keep showering your love upon me. We're just getting started. I will never abandon you. I'm not one of those people that'll get big and then disappear. Like, if I get big, it's going to get better is gonna get crazier, don't forget to hit that like button. Like seriously, it helps. There's 3 top whoops. There's a Mobula 7 1S. It is pretty solid. A nice thing about it with these 802s, they have a thicker shaft. It doesn't bend as much. The electronics are solid. It has like a higher amp rating than the Meteor 75 Pro. The Meteor 75 Pro has more authority. It has these 1102 motors. It's solid and it's just a great drone as long as you don't mod it. Just take it and fly it how it is. I think this is a great kind of race trainer, like the first drone to use in races because the frame is solid, so it tunes nicely. This is solid. The camera is bigger. So all of it is like heavier, but this camera looks really nice. The vision that you get from this is nice and clear. Out of all the little analog things, the Petrol V2 looks the prettiest to fly with. It's a tank. It's a tank. Flying outside, nothing really feels better than the Meteor Pro 75. So for flying outside, I would take the Meteor Pro 75, the black frame. I would put the Happy Model 1002 motors on with these propellers and my little canopy that I made. Now we're talking about the Fractal. Some people really like the Fractal, so I tried it out, and it's another good drone. It's good at just taking a beating. Now let's just look at the weights, because that Petrol V2, 27 grams. So this thing weighs almost 10 grams more than my custom build, and that's the thing. When you do custom builds, you can get things a lot lighter. And now you can even buy them that are a lot lighter, like the new Mobula 7. I'm waiting for them to make like the Mobula 7 and do the same thing, a really light one. The Fractal though, this one weighs 23 grams. Yeah, so this one weighs even less than that one. That's nice. When I built this, they didn't have like the newer propellers, so I'm still using these propellers that aren't as nice. These ones you need a little bit more kV on it to be able to power the drone. The 802s, it feels heavy. It doesn't feel that great. It's good for like slow cruising and exploring and like just doing stuff where you're not doing like flips and tricks as much. If you use it as like a nice little slow cruiser, it's a nice drone. It's solid, it takes a beating, and you can also use it as like a race trainer. When it comes to freestyle, I don't really like this as much. Like I said, like there's racing, there's outdoor, there's freestyle, and there's like smooth flying. When it comes to racing, I love this light thing. When it comes to freestyle, I don't want to freestyle this because I feel like I'll break it. Freestyle outdoor, Meteor Pro 75. That's the one that you can fly indoors and outdoors. It's the only whoop that I think's really actually enjoyable outdoors. But if I go outdoors, why the heck would I ever fly a whoop when I could fly a discus? I just wouldn't. Like if I'm going outside, I'm gonna be flying one of my discuses. 3 to 5 minutes of flight maybe, but not enjoyable. 5 minutes of just ripping amazingness. Just why? Why would I ever do that? Where these things shine, where these whoops shine, is guerrilla whooping. Going and flying somewhere where you kind of know you shouldn't, but it's really exciting and no one's gonna be that mad at you. Like, how are you gonna get in trouble? You're not gonna get in trouble. You're just be like, oh, like get out of here. Or like, oh, that's so cool, but get out of here. That's all that happens with these. No one gets like scared or intimidated by these tiny little things. You just look like a loser because that's probably what you are. I was joking. You're not. You're special. So if you want to start doing, and this is another reason I made this Tinywhoop video, because I'm about to start transferring these over to frames, doing my own little kind of like fractals or flying them on a frame instead of on a thing. When you look at how much these things weigh, if we take the Meteor Pro 75 and you look at what it weighs, 7.6 grams. My frame, the Whisper, it weighs 3.6 grams. So you're gonna save half the weight right there. And even my bigger frame, the Psycho weighs 6.7, 7.6. This frame weighs a gram less than this. And it's solid, so you can be able to tune it nicely. It's gonna fly nice. Now, if you were to then do something like this, so this is the Aquila 16, but I fully modded it for my baby and made this new thing. It has little kitty ears. This is nice. It's lighter than the Aquila. Basically just took the Meteor Pro 75s and put them on there. Now it can just really just be bashed for days and never have to worry about anything because it's just super light, super strong, a great baby bashing trainer. Baby bashing. It's nice. It's way more authority and way nicer than the dinky plastic frame. It frames with ducts. The fractal, what I don't like about the fractal, I don't like the non-True X. I like True X. I don't like the way the camera wiggles around. I don't like that the screws are stuck like into the carbon. Even though it does work, it doesn't seem to be a problem. And I just feel like there's a little bit of wasted carbon the way that it's done. This is, I think, probably beefier. It might even be heavier. I like it for being more like universal. We're going to be able to do a whole pile of different things over time. And I like my frames to be, you can add on to, have something kind of like modular that you can change, do a whole pile of different configurations. We build together, that I build them, and the community can build too. If you do decide to get a frame and put ducts on it, you're going to want to go to AliExpress and order M1.4 6mm length, and then you'll be able to do stuff like this. It'll be long enough that you can screw it through the frame, through the duct. I don't bother with the peak or with those nylon nuts. They break. If you want, you can get titanium ones. Titanium are good, but they're just like 20 bucks for 10 nuts. But if I was going to do it, I wouldn't get peak. I would get the titanium. It's strong and it's light. It's not as light as peak, but it's also stronger. So it's just, once again, these stupid little things always breaking and whatever. You don't want to be messing around with screws that like you can't even see. Cameras. There's all sorts of different cameras. Some of them are very tiny and light. If you're doing your lightest build, you can do that. I prefer kind of adding the weight. I don't mind taking a little bit of weight for the camera to be able to see better. I think it's worth it. That's kind of where you save a whole pile of weight and then you put a little bit back on by having a better camera. So I had a whole pile of ants laying around, Cadex ant, and on a regular drone, it's kind of like a camera that leaves you wanting more. But on a Whoop, it's actually a great camera. Yep, Ariel's bothering me now about the shirt I ruined.
Perfectly nice white shirt.
Well, you know what? I didn't get the job, so whatever. I thought I was going to work in a hair salon, so I got a nice white shirt. And I didn't get the job because I was overqualified. So there you go. There's my nice shirt for work. Ruined, just like most of my tiny whoops. I made this canopy that works with the ant, and it's great. An interesting thing about the cameras is, just in general, when you have cameras that are like bolted in place and you're flying bigger drones, you will get jello because the vibrations, it's getting all the vibrations of the drone. Now, having it set up like this, people would think that it's not that strong. It's lighter, so when it's lighter, it's gonna have less impact, and also because it wiggles. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. The wiggliness, like when it hits, this gives, and because it gives, it doesn't just hit and crack. So I haven't broken any cameras inside mounts like this. And then I just kind of glued the VTX. So you might want to have some like foam in between them. This is broken, so it's just like the ESC is broken, so none of this matters right now. But this was actually my favorite analog freestyle quad. It was just super fun. And I have videos of all of these different drones doing like their flight videos. If you just look at my playlists, I called this one the Baby Punk. So you can look at the Baby Punk videos and see how this thing flew. It was great. And if you buy any of my frames, you can ask me for canopies or different accessories and stuff. You can say, hey Matt, can you toss in a couple of those canopies, and I will have them for you. Props. Okay, so remember how I told you about the Meteor black frame being better than all the colored ones? The opposite is true when it comes to the propellers. When you get the white or black propellers that look like this, they're like a hard plastic, and this hard plastic will crack and break. These propellers were not good. These are the ones that came with Meteor Pro 65. They were really popular for a bit before the Meteor Pro 75 came, and they came with these props that would always bloody fly off and crack. So these ones were terrible. Like on the newer ones, the Meteor Pro 75, same thing. So if you were to get these propellers in this white, like in this like solid white, or in that solid black, they'll crack. On the other hand, if you got these clear ones, if you got these like blue ones or the clear gray ones, they're more like gummy. They like give, so it's like the opposite. So these ones would not break, and these were really good propeller, and you can see them here. Yeah, these propellers, they last very nicely, and they don't break. Now there's new propellers also, and they're by HQ. HQ has some really nice lightweight hard ones. Now the thing is, these lightweight hard ones, they're not as durable as the gummy ones, but they're lighter and they have nice flight characteristics. So if you were doing a 65, I would look for the HQ Super Lights. If you're doing a 75, I would do bi-blades. I wouldn't do tri-blades. I would do the 1610s. Those are my favorite propellers for a 75 millimeter. Or I would try the HQ Super Light one. When it comes to 75 Pro, I prefer the tri-blade. And same thing, you want to get the ones that are clear. You don't want to get any of the opaque ones because they'll just crack. 75 Pro, you want the tri-blades. The ones that come with it. 65 Pro, I wouldn't even bother. I hate 65. I hate their props. And I hate 65. I can just see like Ciotti getting mad at me like 65 is the best. Lots of Whoop enthusiasts do not share these ideas. So now let's talk about pitch. If you are freestyling, a little bit of pitch is nice. It gives you a little bit more like oomph. If you're racing, you want to have less pitch. So the less pitch with racing is going to be just nicer, easier to control, cleaner, and then more pitch when you're doing freestyle. Those thoughts are more from Butterfly FPV. You can go check out Butterfly FPV. He tests out a whole pile of things. Like he flies a whole pile of stuff. I'm always watching what he's doing, and lots of his findings are in line with my thoughts as well. Check out his channel. You're also supporting a dude by watching him that like he has like stuff that he struggles with too, like mental or stuff. He has stuff that he deals with, and despite that he creates. And anyone like going through a hard time like mentally, physically, or whatever, and then still makes an effort to make content, I like to support that, and I want to support that more. I'm happy to share that kind of stuff. Give Butterfly FPV some love. Electronics. So when it comes to electronics, out of all the electronic companies, I've had the most solid time out of Happy Model. I always thought of Happy Model like from the outside, looking at it like one of those like cheap Chinese companies. But everything comes from China anyway, so whatever. But like, you know, there's that like stigma. And then like Emax kind of markets itself like it like looks like it's better or something. Emax uses like just crap, the cheapest electronics possible. That's what I feel like you get from Emax. Happy Model's been in the game for a long time. They have solid electronics. I've been able to direct solder all sorts of motors. I've direct soldered on the Mobula Lite 7, on the Mobeetle 6, this used to be a Mobula 7.1S. All of the Mobula electronics and stuff I've been able to direct solder without having any problems. HDLRC has been pretty hit and miss. Some of them been good. The Petrol has been good, the Draknite. But when I took the Drashark and I transferred everything to direct solder, it stopped working. And this has happened to me for a ton of electronics, and I've decided now that I only direct solder like when the plugs break. It's too harsh to deal with this. This was from crashing, but like 1, 2, like we've had so many, but specifically Beta FPV has the worst electronics. I like them, like their customer service is good and stuff. Some of these got replaced for me and everything, but it's too much to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. To have 6 dead all-in-ones. So these 5 amp, they're just, one of them was like messed up gyro. Another one was, the rest of them were like you direct solder, and then one of them has a twitching ESC. This one is really annoying because when I hit it with the heat gun, it sees the gyro and it starts working, and then when it cools down, the gyro disappears. Yeah, I found these on sale and I bought 3 of them. I transferred one of them over to here to make my my Naked HD0. Then I tried to do another one, and when I did that, it broke. It just sucks because it's just, you have a working quad, transfer it over, you do everything properly, and now you don't. So that's why I never transferred this one. Keeping this one as it is. I have this guy and this one. I tried to do this, but the frame, when it comes to the Meteor 75 frame, you can't put Happy Model electronics on this frame unless it's the right size. Meteor, I tried to take the Mobula 8 and put it on a Meteor 75 Pro frame. It's incompatible, and because of that, it shakes and then the PIDs go out of whack. So this is getting transferred over to my frame, the Whisper, before tearing apart all these whoops, I want to go through all this and teach you what I know. Best and the worst. So the best is Happy Model, the worst is Beta FPV. They need to work on that. And companies need to know what they need to work on, and we need to tell them and be honest about that. Otherwise, it's terrible, because the Meteor Pro 75 is the #1 drone that I would recommend to people, but don't modify it. And I love modifying these things. That's fun of FPV, to like take them apart and make them better. It's all-in-one versus stacks. Yes, so we're at a time now where everything's all-in-one. You can't compare the way that this will feel compared to having like a full big heavy stack and then a VTX on top and then a receiver on top. Thankfully for Express LRS, we have no problems with Express LRS. It can be built in SPI receiver or UARTs. Now most of them are doing UARTs, and that is a solid way to go. What does stink with the all-in-ones, one ESC goes, the whole thing is gone. We might experiment with trying to change ESCs and eventually get that skill, and over time you can get more and more skills. That still scares me, so I haven't done that yet. But changing tiny little ESCs, even if you can do it, I'm sure it's not fun. You can start getting creative. So for instance, this has a dead ESC, but it has a VTX built into it. So then you can take one of your racing analog drones, like a 3-inch, you could wire up this all in one and just use it as the VTX. Then you can give it a little bit more life just for racing in a quad. That's going to take a beating anyways. So you can use it kind of as a disposable VTX, and then you can take all the parts and use them for other things. The other cameras I wanted to mention that are pretty good are the CO3s, maybe the CO4s now too from Beta FPV. The camera looks really nice. They're not super durable. They're a cheap camera, right? But the picture coming out of them looks pretty nice. I think it has the best picture for the weight. And later on in this channel, we're going to be experimenting with some $10 AliExpress camera I found that looks pretty good too. So we'll have that coming up. Make sure you subscribe. Canopies. There's lots of people using these canopies. These canopies are garbage. Don't use them. So remember how I showed you this canopy, how it wiggles and stuff? But if it falls back or something, it has all the rubber back there that protects it so it doesn't smash into your flight controller. Whereas these canopies, these little flimsy canopies, your camera smashes into your electronics. It just smashes into your electronics. So when your camera smashes into your electronics, you can destroy your drone pretty easily. Whereas something kind of like this wobbles back and forth. Let me show you a different one. See, I have that foam there. So all it does is like it smashes the foam or goes back. It's also holding the camera in the air. So the camera isn't like solidly against anything. So when it hits, it takes the hit and it smushes into the TPU or into the foam. So it doesn't break anything. The worst thing that could happen is the camera could come out of the canopy, but I use E6000 or 5-second fix to kind of glue it on, and then it can just wiggle around, take the hits, and be good.
Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
And I have bashed the poop out of this one, and it's been totally fine. Also, these things are mostly flying indoors. It's not the same as like being outside and just smashing it into concrete. Usually indoors you have carpets or super shiny floors that they slide on, and then they slide instead of just grabbing and hitting something. There's like these light canopies, and these guys will crack on you. Then there's canopies like this that are just like, this is a tank. This is probably the strongest canopy out of all of them, but it's also 2.5 grams. My canopy, not even 1 gram. You see, so you're saving almost 2 grams, and it's holding the antenna in place. So I really like having that antenna in place. Everything's light as possible, solid and wiggly. Same thing kind of here. See, even with this one, with the broken front, I've left it like that, and this wiggliness, it actually doesn't wiggle at all when it flies. It flies really nice and smooth. Oh, another thought. If you're dealing with 2mm holes, filament from a 3D printer is 1.75 millimeters. So you can stick it through and you can pressure fit it and melt it so that nothing goes anywhere. So I've done things like that. You can put a grommet on it and then you can melt it, and you can use filament to kind of pressure fit your electronics into place. And that is lighter. Yeah, it's nice. It works. So there's something you can experiment with. Another thing you can do is take that camera and just kind of glue it in place. You can find places to glue it. E6000 it somewhere and try that. It's another way to save some weight. We'll do goggle reviews. We'll do other reviews and stuff. Oh, I wanted to just show you too, like with just frame design. You see, like for instance, this frame, it doesn't need all this material? Like, why did they make this extra part come out when they could have just brought it in? Why does it have these 2 extra braces? Like, everything could have been brought in and it could have been made lighter, but instead it was made like wider. I just see that all the time. Or there was another one. There was this one. See, this one's thin and long, and they try and put 2 holes. That makes it weaker. When you do the 2 holes, it's always going to be weaker than if it has the one. And because it's long and thin, there's going to be shake, so that it's going to vibrate, and then you're going to have problems trying to tune it. So it's better to go a little bit tighter, a little bit less weight on the ends, on the arms, and then the protection can come from ducts if you want, or you can just leave it kind of unprotected. It's going to shake, and those fat ends are going to cause drag. It's going to just, everything kind of works against itself. I don't like that. When designing the Whisper and the Psycho, I did the Whisper to kind of make the lightest little thing you can make, and then I did the Psycho to have kind of more like a beefier basher. I didn't design it in a way for the bigger motors to be on it. This can do up to 2 inches. This can do up to 2.5 inches, but it only does the motors with this orientation. I played around with trying to make it work so that you could put the bigger motors. But to me, the moment that you go to motors like 1304s or like bigger motors than the ones that are available, then you might as well have a 3.5. Because the 3.5 can take those motors and you're going to have a better flight experience. When you have something like this, you can put 1102s, build a 1S. It's still going to be fun. You're going to have a good time on it. You can also do you can buy a Meteor 8 and you could transfer that over. This has the same type of motors too, the 3-prong motors that will fit, so you could directly transfer this onto the Psycho. When it comes to the digital drones, see this? The way that they're designed with the unit, because nobody wants to take apart the air unit, so they leave it in a case and then they do it square. It shouldn't be in a square because it's blocking all that air. So I made a version where this can take the naked 03, and then you can have a 03 Mob 8 and it'll weigh about 37. And I had the battery on it, so it weighs you're sub 100 with an 03 air unit, because right now that's at 56.6 with the battery. So all you'd have to add is the naked air unit in the camera. Okay, so 75 grams with the camera, the air unit, battery, all up weight, 75 grams. And I've focused on making stuff like that. So instead of making my own full bind and flies, I've been taking drones on the market, redesigning them, making them lighter and better. You see, when you take it naked and you put the 03 on it, it ends up being a lot nicer like that, a lot lighter. And when this is all built up, it can actually dive straight down without getting all messed up. When you have it like this, with all that weight on top, when it's going down, the weight pulls it forward and it starts doing weird things. And that's what I like to do here also with my discus. And you can check out the website. It's gonna have different builds on it, like my favorite build with the parts, so that you can do what works instead of having to mess around with all these things the way that I did. You can just look at, for instance, the Crux 35, which is to me the best budget drone that you could get. See all the space in the standoffs? They did it so that they can stick a Vista in. When it comes on impact and it hits, because of having long standoffs, it's easier for them to bend. So I redesigned it. So this is basically the same thing. The Crux 35 slammed in 15mm standoffs inside my frame, the Great Discus. And the Great Discus is like a universal frame that can be done so many different ways. Here we have it with the Naked Vista. People in the community have done stuff like designed these paws for it. Blue FPV flies it a lot. You can check out Blue FPV, and he has tons of videos flying his HD0 discus, and that's a great thing. So this is Vista. I made an 03 discus. This weighs 200 grams all up weight with a 650 4S, and it's a pusher, and it flies beautifully. This is HD0 discus, and I have pushers, and I have regular ones, 3S, 4S, and then you see these things. I print these holders, and then the holder can screw in through the GoPro onto the discus at any angle you want. You just print different adapters, and the same kind of thing happens with this as a canopy. Because this is on the TPU holders, when it takes a hit, the TPU bends. And I made a fully encased one that could show you the screen and everything and have the fan, but I found over time that just making it lighter and stronger works better. So I got it down from this, which was 36 grams. And also, even just look at this. This is the same material as this. But that over there, I was printing at 350 degrees, and it was burning the PETG and making it crack. And this is printed same P to G, printed at 230, and now it actually has a slight bit of flex to it. It's shinier, it's stronger, and this setup is only 30 grams. It does have kind of an open back, but I find all your impact's going to be straight. Plus, when it's sitting on a pusher like this, battery is there, so like it'll hit the battery or something. It's not going to be getting smashed from behind. If it did hit something from behind, it would hit the battery, not the camera. And then in the future, I'm going to be creating kind of like a TPU layer that you can put on top of this that has protection for the camera, so that we can have the 30 gram super light one for like being able to do real estate or flying around like indoors and stuff on a tiny drone like the Psycho. I'm working towards making a naked GoPro 10 that can go on an indoor drone and be under 100 grams, about a 2S setup. But then I'm also going to do a version where we have TPU over it and protection, so that it can actually really take a beating. And this does pretty well. When I had it in these cases, so far I've cracked 3 of these cases, but they've kept the GoPro fine. And since I built this case, I haven't broke any. If you order a discus off of me, you can ask for one of these and I'll send it with a discus at whatever angle mounts you want with it. If you have friends that are getting into drones, I have a beginner playlist, videos that will teach you how to build a drone from scratch. A lot of work goes into making these videos. Join my Patreon. You can do that for as little as $1. But one of the best ways that you can support me is just tuning in, coming by, saying hello, sharing me with your friends. I have a fun video about the Canadian Tinywhoop Championships. It's entertaining and educational. You get to see the difference between a drone like this, just straight out of the box, and after I put a tune on it. Also in the beginner playlist, I do have a tune that you can throw on just about everything. I throw it on all my quad. It works really nicely, so you can have that. You can go through the videos and learn more, and there's playlists for most of these quads. So if you want to see the HD0 discus, the O3 discus, you can check that out so you can see how they fly. And looking at the way a quad flies is one of the best ways that you can know whether it's something that you want. Because people can talk and say whatever they want, but when you see the way the quad flies, when you see it shaking, when you see that the drone turns and like it wobbles and everything because it's too heavy, a good pilot can kind of compensate. It's hard to hide that, especially if you have less experienced pilots flying bad quads. That's actually where you see the best how quads fly, and everyone makes reviews about everything. So don't just look at the better people to review something. Look at some of the worst people, because if you have a bad person flying a great quad, sometimes they can get away with it. But if you have them flying like a garbage quad, you can see all those shakes and mess and everything. When it comes to whoops like the Synolog, and we're seeing this happen now a lot more, you want to buy a whoop that's all one piece. You don't want to buy these whoops that are with all the ducts separately. Like the old Synologs, they had all these ducts that were separate. They just shake more, which makes it harder to tune. You want to have it all in one piece. Fox Whoop is probably going to be the last drone that I build that I didn't design. I like this frame. It's supposed to be indestructible. We like the sound of that. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. If there's anything you want to add to this, tips, tricks, or whatever, add those too. Check out the Canadian Whoop race.